to the Chronicles podcast. If this is the first time you're watching, hi, my name is Becca. I am an above knee amputee and self-proclaimed cripple. That is how I identify. My disability cripples me. That is why this podcast is called the Cripple Chronicles. I'm not really sure I've kind of acknowledge stuff like that before. However, I know that cripple is a word that has been used as a derogatory term towards disabled people. However, in this instance, if you're watching this podcast, this is not me telling you that you can go and call disabled people cripples. However, if you meet me and you call me a cripple, I'm not going to be offended by it. But I don't know why, I just wanted to give a bit of a PSA before I started that. I think because today's kind of about accessibility and the downsides of that, and I just wanted to start by kind of saying that I'm going to bring a few more things into the podcast for a bit of disability representation. I have another episode planned after this one, and then I'm going to do an episode where I actually talk about representation of disability in the media, especially if anybody has watched the recent season of Traitors. It was on the BBC. I've just finished watching it. I actually fell asleep the other day. I had a nap for the last episode. However, when I'd went to therapy a few weeks ago, the guy that won it had been on Loose Women, and I'd actually forgot who it was. I thought it was somebody else, and then as it was getting nearer the end, I was like, oh, it's you. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because a guy in the Traitors was an amputee. There was a girl who was a disability model who I think she was born where she had a limb deformity or a limb difference, and she now does modelling. And then one of the people who got to the finalist was also in a major road traffic accident 23 years previously and told that he would never walk again. And to watch the TV and see things like that where I feel represented in that kind of way, I'm going to speak more about it when I get to that episode, because there is a few things that I picked up on from watching that, but then I also want to dive into other things. But I'm just kind of bringing that up to let you know that I have got a plan going forward with the podcast. I am in the process of creating some kind of content plan where I'll have things that I'm posting, and I want to kind of keep you guys in the loop, because whoever is listening along to this, I want you to enjoy it, hence why I have the emails, cripplechroniclespod@gmail.com. That is for you to email in to tell me anything you want to tell me, what you like about the episodes, any questions you have, any things you want me to cover. The same as over on Instagram and TikTok. My messages are open to people on that, so if you're ever listening along and there's something that I say, even if there's things that I say that you don't quite agree on, I would love to hear other people's perspectives on things. And that I'm really eventually wanting to get into having guests on the podcast, having different voices on the podcast, but that's just taken a bit more planning. This is all self-done, self-made. I record it right now. I'm sitting in my living room. I'm really hoping that there's not going to be a lot of noise coming from the window and things like that. I don't even know what the lighting's like with the shadows and things like this. I do this all on my own. I record it, I edit it, I try and alter the audio so it sounds good. Like the other week when I had lost my recording from the microphone, trying to kind of link it up with the videos so it looks the same. I'm having a wee bit more fun when I'm editing things. You would have seen on a podcast, if you watch it on YouTube, I think it was maybe the last one, I was playing around a wee bit with editing things, so it makes it more enjoyable to watch it if you're on YouTube. But this is all self-learned. I'm just learning as I'm going, and I'm really having fun whilst I'm doing it, so I'm wanting to really build more things into this, because I do feel like this podcast could be something really beautiful outside of me just sitting down and chatting away for an hour. So that's kind of the game plan. I wanted to start this episode by kind of going over that, really, because over the past few months I have been a bit burnt out, and I'm wanting to do some episodes where I look at kind of what it's actually like to create content whilst being disabled, and it's not looking at it in a way where I know a 9 to 5 job is very stressful, very strenuous, and I'm never going to kind of compare content creation to that. But it is a lot of work, and I do get burnt out sometimes, and then it has an impact. But I'm really trying to work on that, find ways to do things where I'm giving myself a bit more time and things. So if you are an avid watcher or listener to this podcast, I guess I just want to start this episode by saying thank you for sticking around the last few months when I've been a bit absent and kind of still keeping up with the episodes. I am now finally going to get into the episode on accessibility downsides. The start of it is a bit of a recap from some of the things that I mentioned in the last episode, but I'm going to finish this intro off by saying, please, like I said, if you've got anything that you want to say, any thoughts, any questions, anything, drop me an email to cripplecroniclespod@gmail.com, and follow me on my social media on Instagram and TikTok. It's Cripple Chronicles Pod, and it's the same for YouTube as well. Literally now, if you go on Google and Google Cripple Chronicles Pod, the podcast pages come up. I don't know if that's just me, because I do the podcast and I do a lot of stuff for it, and Google's obviously like tailored by your cookies. I didn't really do it on like incognito mode or stuff, but so for me, if I Google Cripple Chronicles, it comes up on Google. So anyway, follow it, like it, listen along. Thank you so much. Let's get into this week's episode. Today, I am going to start off by doing a little life update from the previous episode. If you've not watched it, go back and watch it after this one, but I will give you a little bit of a rundown so you're not totally lost. I had somebody try to break into my house a couple of months ago, and I phoned the police and I reported it. And I mentioned in the last episode that when the police came out to my house round about 6 o'clock in the morning, the guy had actually said to me, like, well, if you hadn't had your window on the latch, they wouldn't have tried it. And previously, I would have went away and I would have beat myself up about that, and I would have told myself that it was my fault. I would have told myself that I was stupid for leaving my window on the latch and I should have been more knowledgeable of that. But you never expect somebody to try your window. That was never my fault that somebody tried to break into my house. So after I posted that podcast episode, I've just realised again from the last episode, I caught myself saying so many times, and I've just done it again, and I'm like, oh girl. Anyway, after I had posted that last episode, the police actually came back to see me, and they just came back to see me to tell me like they hadn't had any CCTV, they basically didn't have any follow-up. And in this, I told them like I'd went away, I'd get extra protection on my windows because I'd felt unsafe and like it had really fucked me up. And since it was the people that had came out to see me, I thought that was the best possible opportunity. If I had a complaint about how that guy had conducted himself when he came out to see me, instead of making a complaint to the police and them not actually doing anything, it was better to actually say it to his face. And during this, before they came, I was on FaceTime to Eleanor where we're having our morning check-in, and I checked my doorbell and I saw it was the police. I went to the door, and in that I had left my doorbell like app open on my phone, and when you do that it records the whole interaction. So I was on FaceTime to Eleanor and she recorded it when I started, and after I stopped she said like that was amazing. Like, I am somebody that's quite scared of the police. I don't know if I said that in the last episode. Like, when I'm driving, even if I'm driving under the speed limit, I'm paranoid. I hate it. I always, whenever I see the police, I feel like I've done something wrong, even though I've not done anything wrong. For that, as me, somebody that has that kind of ingrained feeling, it would never have been to me that I would actually speak up for myself in that scenario. The recording that I have, I am actually going to play it, and I did a bit of research on this because I was questioning it a wee bit. I didn't know if I posted something, if the police officers that were involved in this video would be angry or annoyed about it. I Eleanor's just texted me and I got distracted because I forgot to put my laptop on Do Not Disturb, so I am going to do that just now so I get no more little pinging distractions. Yeah, so I looked up information about posting recordings of the police, recording when the police maybe stop you for a search and things like that, because when I'd been speaking about it, somebody had said to me, well, the Metropolitan Police have actually encouraged that you post videos and stuff that you have of interactions with the police. And the Metropolitan Police in the UK is one of the biggest police forces. However, when I started trying to look for this information, I found a page that it said the Metropolitan Police even encourages it here. And when I clicked on it, the link wasn't valid anymore, which means they've taken that information down. Why would you do that? It was put up in a time where I really can't remember the woman's name and it's terrible, but she was sexually assaulted by a police officer, and that was then that these safety things were said that you're more likely to do it. But I've got a little infographic that I found here, which I am going to speak through for those that are listening on Spotify and Amazon, but I'm also going to put it on the screen for those that are watching on YouTube so you can kind of see what I mean. This is from a website called Crime Bodge. If you want to go look at it, there's a background story of why this guy has went and done a lot of legal research into the police and how to basically protect yourself from the police, because if you are somebody like me who is pretty sceptical about the job that the police do, you are quite scared when they come to their house and they want to come in, and if somebody's having a bad day, are they going to try and pin something on me? Are they going to try and fucking do whatever? I don't know. These things can happen, and the reason I'm saying that is because that is kind of the story behind Crime Bodge. So it's crimebodge.com if you want to actually go kind of really look at this information, but I'm going to read this wee infographic just now. It says, always film the police. 1. Without video evidence, it will be your word against theirs. 2. Court cases and complaints against the police can be won or lost on video evidence. 3. Don't rely on the police body worn video. It is pointed at you, not at them. 4. The police may be reluctant to abuse their authority when they know that they are being filmed. 5. Public exposure remains the only surest way of holding the police to account. So this is why I'm going to play this video, and then I am going to give you a bit of commentary on how I feel after it. There was one thing I actually wanted to mention. It kind of, the night you had come out, it had actually really upset me when you had said, like, well, if your window hadn't been on the latch, we wouldn't be out here. That really kind of got to me, because and like you'd kind of said something along the lines of, was your window open? And I said it was on the latch, and you'd said to yourself, like, oh, well, like, if your window wasn't open, like, this wouldn't have happened. And that, because I was in a really triggered state, like, that really upset me. I didn't precisely say that. It was something along the lines of that, but the word didn't. I'm pretty certain I was early in the morning, but I wouldn't have said that. We were out here anyway for what happened down in the road, okay? And it just transpired that it was the same kind of description of the same guy, yeah. Okay? I know I said that I was actually going to play it and then pause it and give my commentary, but this video is 3 minutes long, so I'm going to pause it now, because that is the first point. That took me a lot to say, look, what you said was hurtful to me, and initially he tried to shut me down. He said, no, it was early in the morning, we were already responding to something and it was a similar description. That's why I said it. But I didn't just stop there. In the past, if somebody had shut me down like that, then yeah, definitely. I am somebody who used to speak when spoken to. I wanted to be in the background. I wanted to be seen, not heard, really, or not seen, not heard either, just like a little wallflower. But that is a point where I would have like shut down before. However, I'm going to continue playing it to let you see how I handled it in that situation.
That I said they do take a house breaking a lot more seriously. Okay, it wouldn't have been. I definitely wouldn't have said that.
Well, it was just that however it came off, even if you didn't mean it in the way you said it, I can realise it was early in the morning.
So just to clarify, what did you say?
It was like something along the lines of you asked if I had my window open and you said if I hadn't had my window on the latch, he wouldn't have tried my window basically, which yes, that is true.
Oh right, okay. So you're saying you're not saying that the police wouldn't come out?
No.
Oh right, sorry, I misunderstood.
He said there, oh, so you're not saying that the police wouldn't have came out? I didn't say that initially. I didn't say that we wouldn't be here, as in the police wouldn't be here. I said that the guy wouldn't have tried to break into my house. It's like, with me having my window on the latch, that's why he tried it. And
right, what I mean by that is...
I can understand it makes me at a higher risk.
If you think, put yourself in the mind of a criminal.
Yeah, no, like I can totally get why you're saying
If you're thinking, like, I'm going down this road out here and I want to take something or I want to get in somewhere, oh, that window shut, well, that window looks slightly ajar, I'm going to go for that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so you've got to kind of think of it security conscious.
It wasn't, it was like my window was on the latch, it was just for ventilation.
Yeah, no,
like
I understand.
My window wide open and in that moment it was just...
It didn't mean to, I wouldn't say I wanted to scare you anymore, but it's a very bit of realism. It's a harsh realism.
I understand.
Do you know what I mean? That
is a comment that really gets me as well. Like, I mean, like, oh, I was just trying, like, I wasn't really, I don't want to say I was trying to scare you, but it's a bit of harsh realism. See, at 5 o'clock in the morning when I've already just had a man try to break into my house, that's already the realism I need in that moment. And I do go on to say, like, it just really wasn't the right time. Like, if you're coming back now and I've not done anything to secure my house or to make myself safer, yeah, fair enough, say that. But at the time when I'm up to here, like, really triggered, really anxious, feeling sick, wanting to cry, not knowing what to do, the police are in my, like, so many things going on, and you think that's a good time to then try and scare me. Like, I'm already fucking terrified.
I wasn't, if I made you feel more anxious, then I'm sorry, I didn't mean that wasn't my intention.
I grew up in a very, violent household, so I understand a lot about security and stuff like that, and it was just, I never really expected something like that to happen, so I was just in shock at the minute. And it was just kind of at that point, like, maybe when you come out now, something along the lines of, like, safety conscious, if I hadn't got extra protection, maybe kind of saying, well, they would kind of try your window in that case. At the time, I was already really heightened, and it did, like, when I was speaking to my family, I realised that was one of the things that really kind of upset me, because I really felt like it was my fault.
No, I didn't mean it to be your fault. It was just the way I've put it's my words of advice. All right.
I just kind of wanted to bring that up, just like, because in the future, like, it wasn't something where I wanted to raise a complaint or anything, but just because you came back out, I just wanted to say.
No, that's fine. I'll take that.
It did kind of upset me a little bit. So that is then kind of the end of where I start recording. I think there was a point where he'd said that he's just blunt, and I was like, well, I'm quite blunt too, but that's not the point. Like, it was insensitive for you to do that there, and even, like, showing that video, there is nothing bad that actually happens in it. That is just a conversation between me and the police when they came to the door and asked to speak to me. They rung my ring doorbell. They know it records. It has it on my door. Like, me, I have every right to post this, to speak about it, to talk about how I felt in it. And I guess I just wanted to put that out there because I I still do feel anxious about it. I feel like I'm doing something wrong in this, even though all of the stuff that I've seen online says I'm not doing anything wrong. It still feels like somebody could be upset or annoyed about it. And in my brain, if somebody's upset or annoyed, then I've done wrong. And I'm trying to stop myself thinking that way. And I just think it's good to have a visualization of being able to have these conversations with figures of authority when you're upset or you've been hurt by something that they've said, in the hopes that next time when they respond to another call that they don't say the same thing to somebody else. But like I said, watching that video back, how I composed myself, how I managed to speak with confidence in my voice, I didn't appear like I was intimidated or anxious or scared by them, which is how I felt in the moment, but I didn't want to portray that. I wanted to speak to them as a confident disabled woman who is in a wheelchair who you have upset, and I want you to take some accountability for your actions. And I am so proud of myself for that, because Becca a few years ago wouldn't have been able to do that. And to be honest, like, I'm so surprised that I'm like 20 minutes into this episode. I really thought this would take up like 10 minutes. So I'm kind of like, I'm just a wee bit buzzing because, like, I love doing the podcast. I love recording. I love just chatting away and knowing that somebody's going to listen to this when they're cleaning or just sitting chilling, or they see my wee notification pop up and they're like, oh, Becca's posted a podcast episode. I'll put it on when I'm in the car. And I don't know, it gives me a wee buzz. It gives me a wee boost because I'm like, I enjoy doing it and I know that people enjoy listening to it, and being able to just sit and chat about my life and know that I've been doing it for like nearly 25 minutes, that is amazing to me. It shows so much progress in where I started a year ago with the podcast, because I've hardly had to actually look at my notes right now. But I'm going to have to start looking at them now because I've got a whole lot of other stuff to cover. So this might end up being a long episode today. We'll see how it goes. I might end up getting a boost of energy and start just wrapping everything off, but we'll see how it goes. We're just playing it by ear. Like, I love it. Before I go on to talking about accessibility things, I did want to stop and take a wee minute to chat about my prosthetics and problems I've been having with it. I went and got fit for a new prosthetic round about the start of December, the end of November, and they said should hopefully have it before Christmas. Didn't get it kind of until the middle of January, and I had it for 2 weeks, and guess what? It started hurting me again. I managed to wear it for 5 days after going to physio and making my physio speechless because of how well I was walking and moving about when I hadn't wore a prosthetic in 6 months, and that was such just the boost of confidence that I needed to be able to wear it out and about and to go do things. And I went to the Falls of Falloch and I managed to go to the waterfall and walk up the walkway and go back and walk all the way to the car park. And then when I went to my prosthetic appointment, we started doing things and it started hurting me. And the prosthetist came and she said, unfortunately, there's not a quick fix. I need to get cast for another prosthetic and get another one made, which in my experience usually takes at least 2 months. So another 2 months where I can wear my leg if I'm sitting down, but it loses suction because it's too big for me, and I can't really do a lot of walking or moving when I've got it on because it hurts me, and then the pain continues to last when I take the leg off. And it's really hard because I knew when I went and got my leg amputated after everything with the frame that it was going to come with its difficulties, it was going to come with its challenges, but it really feels like a game where you keep getting to the same point and you die, and the point after is just like a wee checkpoint, but you just can't reach it. And you do it 10, 15 times, and you get there and you go back to the start and you know the route so well that it's so easy to pick it up every time you start the level, but then you get stuck at the same point, sent back to the start every single time. And when that happens to me in games, usually I quit. Usually I say, "Do you know what? I'm not doing this. I can't." And sometimes I do come back to it a few months later and I manage to beat it, and I come back to it and it's still just the same, and then I give up again. But this isn't a video game, it's my life. I can't just say I'm giving up because I've got goals that I know I can achieve if I just have a prosthetic that fits me properly. But it's exhausting. It's really exhausting and it's quite demotivating. Anytime I get a prosthetic, I'm anxious of when is the pain going to start. And this time I really thought when I was wearing it, the way it was feeling, that it wasn't going to happen this time. But I was wrong, unfortunately, and I'm back to just using my wheelchair. I mean, even with my prosthetic on, I need to use my wheelchair lots. But it's back to hopping. Hopping's a big thing. When I went to my gran's a few weeks ago and I had my leg on, being able to walk up and down those stairs is so much easier than the strain it puts on my body hopping up and down them. But I still do it because it's worth it to spend time with her and see her. On that note, I am going to start talking about accessibility and the downsides. And I'd said that I was going to kind of go back to the Falls of Falloch. This is something where it's not even a big downside for accessibility, but it is a big talking point that I have, is the amount of accessibility information that is available to people online, especially places that you're going, restaurants, clubs, mini golf, games, bowling, things like that. A lot of times when you go onto websites and you click accessibility, it gives you the accessibility of the web page. I want to know about the accessibility of your venue. I hate phoning people. I hate doing it. I hate the anxiety of when the phone's ringing and when are they going to pick up and what am I going to say and have I got my script ready in my head for to ask them questions. It is exhausting. So see, to have to do that anytime you want to go somewhere because you're disabled, it's shite. Like, so many times I see reviews from places and people just don't even think to review what the access is like. So on my TikTok, I've started doing little nature journeys in Scotland, finding places to go and doing little accessibility reviews of them. I went to the Falls of Falloch, and online the thing that I found that said that it is even ground and it is accessible for buggy and wheelchairs as long as it's kind of a dry day. I made sure to go on a dry day. It had been wet, but then it had been pretty windy for a few days, so it had all dried out and I had my prosthetic on. And if I had went without my brother, I would have really struggled to manage on my own because the weight of my prosthetic, having my crutches and trying to push myself on the uneven ground was so difficult. I needed him to push me, and it was the first time that I've actually went out anywhere since my accident where I've been able to confidently say that walking with my prosthetic and my crutches was actually easier than being in my wheelchair, and that's not the norm for me. But it's really sad that now with the prosthetic issues that it kind of I don't get to explore more places like that just yet. I need to kind of wait, and that's just part of the journey, I guess. But even after having that knock of knowing that I wasn't able to wear my prosthetic, the next weekend I went to the Kelpies, which is just outside kind of Edinburgh. I'm pretty sure it's in like Fife area. They're the big fucking massive horses. Well, I actually learned that the Kelpies are mythical creatures, but if you want to know more about that, I made a little video on TikTok so you can go watch it. But in this video I also talked about the accessibility because when I pulled up, free parking for those with a blue badge, and they'd said, oh, there's some parking spaces here, however I can give you a wee permit and I'll open the gate and you can go right down. And it was literally right next to, I could go up and round, and it was so nice to be, I just felt quite free, to be honest. And it is really amazing to see these 30-metre tall horses in person. Like, it's an amazing sight. Even when you're driving towards them, there's one that kind of looks over the motorway, and it's just stunning. I've heard lots of people say that it's also quite beautiful at night. And I also went into the kind of gift shop restaurant, and it was just basic food: cheese pizza, pepperoni pizza, mac and cheese, soup and a roll, chips, chips and cheese, chips and curry sauce, just like plain, easy food, stuff that kids quite like, stuff that anybody likes, to be honest. And I also went into the disabled bathroom, which was really large, had a lot of space. And the guy on the gate that I gave the permit back to was really lovely. Like, hope you enjoyed your stay. Make sure you come back soon. Like, really, really pleasant. And that was a positive when it comes to accessibility. I was really glad that they'd done things to make it more accessible for people with disabilities. However, I'm going to think about some things when not having my car about accessibility, so thinking about public transport. I've spoke before about being a regular user of the bus, and the downside of accessibility when it comes to buses in Scotland, and I'm pretty sure in England as well, is only one wheelchair user can travel on the bus at once. And you'll notice in one of my last podcast episodes, I referred to somebody as my partner. Funnily enough, one of the first times that I do that, we then end up stopping seeing each other. So my ex-partner was also a wheelchair user, and we had been on a date one day, and we went to get on the bus together because I'd been coming back from somewhere and a guy let me on the bus, and it was a woman in a mobility scooter, and I just parked on the other side, and I thought that's fine. So I got on the bus, and then the driver went, "Nah, you're not getting on." And he was like, "But like, we're travelling together." And he was like, "Nah, you'll need to wait for the next bus, you're not getting on." And he was like actually quite rude about it. And it's like, I know it's not the driver's fault and it's a safety thing of why they only take one wheelchair user, but what the actual fuck, man? Like, what if I had a child who also had a disability and needed a wheelchair and I didn't have a car? I then can't take my child on the bus safely because you've only got one space for wheelchair users. Like, that's wild. I've raised this with first because there had been scenarios as well where my ex had been leaving mine and he'd went for the bus and the bus had just drove right past him, and it was the last bus, meaning that he was in a power chair, so he then had to go 25 minutes to the train station to then try and make the last train because he'd missed the last bus because the person had drove past him. Like, people being lazy because they don't want to get the ramp out. It's a thing also that you see with station staff at train stations and train conductors. I mentioned in the previous accessibility episode about the passenger assist app that you can use when you're travelling on the train to book assistance, and most of the time when I'm travelling on the train I will use the passenger assist app because I don't like the attitudes of staff when you turn up unannounced in a wheelchair. Sometimes people look at you like you're a literal piece of shit, like they can't be bothered dealing with you. Why do they need to go get the ramp out? I've had people literally refuse to put me on a train when there's still been like 3 minutes of time, literally standing right up the end of the platform so they don't have to do it, and then coming down and saying, "No, we need to send the trains away from the very top of the platform," but no other conductor has ever done it since. Like, why are you being like that? Another scenario is one of the last times I went to Leeds, we ended up being quite late getting to the train station. And if anybody has ever been to Leeds train station, you'll know the side exit is a big, massive hill. I've got a video of me going down the hill so you can see like the steepness of it. Before I heaved myself up that hill with a big backpack on, and I got about two-thirds of the way and I really struggled and I needed a woman to help me. So this time tried to go a different direction, went through the city centre, but the city centre in Leeds is getting all pedestrianised, so they were making sidewalks bigger, doing a lot of road work, so that meant having to crisscross across the road, using more energy, especially when carrying luggage, having, like, nightmare. Got into the station, grabbed some food really quickly, went to try and get on the train. There was probably 2 minutes before the train left, and not can't get on, it's left. It's not left because somebody ran past us and was able bodied and managed to get on the train. So my ex partner's kind of arguing with them, like, the train's literally still there. You got the ramp out. Why can't you just let us on? No, no, no. You're late. You're meant to be here 15 minutes before. Literally see you going into McDonald's and buying food, so it's your own fault. Like, didn't even go into McDonald's, mate. You said you didn't know where we were, but now you're saying you saw us. Why didn't you say anything? Like, what the fuck? So then I'm freaking out because I've bought a train ticket. My ex hasn't. I've paid 60 quid. I don't have any more money in my bank to pay another 60 quid for a train ticket. And it's one of those where, like, if it's advance or whatever, you usually can't use it. So I'm trying to ask the staff that's telling us we can't get on the train what I'm meant to do. They send me to the ticket office, which is just behind the platform. Get to the desk and the woman's like, "Well, why did you miss your train?" And I'm like, "You've literally probably just seen me fucking pelting it down there, wheeling as fast as I could." And I just said to my ex, I was just like, "Look, I can't do this." And I went away and I ended up having a meltdown because I just felt stuck. I felt really stuck and I felt a bit incapable, and I just felt like these members of staff didn't fucking care at all. They actually just wanted to make things more difficult for me. And the reason why I say that is because the guy that was having a go at us at the station, my partner had went into the toilet. I'd went and bought a book to read on the train, and it was like Life of a 40 something fuck up. It's about a woman who has a podcast. I haven't ended up actually reading the book, so I can't say much about it, but since I have a podcast, I was interested. And he comes over and he starts pointing at the book, and also, you're actually going to make it on time, and why do they use that language? Like, it's all about just being nice to the people around you and that you meet and stuff like that. As if basically having a dig, and I'm like, you're the one that's fucking chatting to me like shit when I've tried to make a train and it's still there and you've not let me on, and now I'm minding my own business and you're trying to pick a fight with me. Like, what is going on here? There is also a scenario where my ex had turned up to the train station and a conductor put him on the train on the ramp. Well, not a conductor, sorry. A member of the station staff put him on the train with the ramp, didn't tell the conductor that he was on there, which then meant that he missed the stop, had to go back the way, and then back up. Like, it's a nightmare. Like, being on a train and knowing that if you stop and the conductor is nowhere near, that you're going to have to press the button and stop the whole train by an emergency stop and speak to the driver. And it's this kind of thing where there's a lot of guilt that comes around with being disabled. Like, I feel guilty for just existing sometimes in spaces that are too small, too cramped. I'm in my wheelchair and I'm feeling like I'm taking up too much space. People are giving me dirty looks because they're struggling to get by me, even though I can't do anything to fucking help it. Like, people look at you and sometimes even fucking like huff or shake their heads because the bus has been delayed with you getting on, or they give you like these looks of sympathy. And it's horrible sometimes. Just, I like to really kind of carry myself and how I think about myself and how I conduct myself. And I try to be early, I try to stay out of people's way and things like that. But when you have scenarios like that, it's really hard to ignore the way that people look at you and the ways that society perceives disabled people. Being to get my nails done 3 times in the one place by the same woman, and every time I went, she asks, "Oh, so have you get help? Do you get support? You came here all by yourself. You live on your own with no support. Wow. How do you do that? Oh my gosh. That's so inspirational. Do not call me fucking inspirational for just living my life in a wheelchair. No, that's not on. Like, Yes, my life is accessible. I've made things easier for me. Right now, the couch that I'm sitting on literally has razors on it, so it sits higher up so that I can sit in another room of my house and feel comfortable. Like, just because I'm able to do something, I don't want it to be an inspiration of like, oh look, she's this this is why it's called the Cripple Chronicles, right? Because this is, oh look at that poor little cripple and she's like getting up and doing stuff, and like really I should too, because that's just like, look at her go. That's like disability inspirational porn. Like, no. I live my life, and yeah, it can be quite inspirational, the things I do, the things I throw myself into. But if you don't know that and you're just seeing me and saying like, wow, you control your wheelchair so well, you're so inspirational, fuck off. Like, I literally have no other choice than to live my life the way that I do. Stop like glamorizing it, please. Like, yes, I am very proud of all of the things that I've managed to achieve, and I'm allowed to toot my own horn. And I don't mind when people know me say I'm inspirational or I'm brave. It's when people that don't know anything about the other side of the story call me inspirational and brave. It can be quite upsetting sometimes, actually, because it's like you literally just see the wheelchair and you think, wow, cause you can live your life in a chair, you're inspirational. Like, mm-mm. No thanks. I've realised there that I kind of got a bit sidetracked, just kind of rambling on about other things, but it is like attitudes of people is really important, especially I am somebody who is very sensitive. I can kind of read people, I can read the feelings. I'm pretty hyper vigilant, whether that's the way that my brain is wired or the trauma I've sustained or just a whole mix of my life experiences. I am very empathetic and things like that. And it's just that feeling sometimes, if I'm already feeling kind of a bit off or icky, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to go out the house right now to be seen as like, well, look at how well you do that. Like, I don't want praise for just living my life the way I need to live my life, because that's just odd. But like I was saying, I got kind of sidetracked, and sidetracked kind of actually follows into a good um transition. I actually said that and then I realised like I'm not American, so sidewalk isn't what we say in the UK, it's a pavement. But that's what I'm going to talk about. Is another thing that is a downside of accessibility that I find very frequently is uneven pavements that have to be done for draining, and they are sloped. That means that most of the time they are sloped to the right side. I'm already lighter on the right side, so it makes it very heavy on this arm. And I get home and I'm like, wow, that took a lot out of me. So sometimes you'll see me just going down the road, still very close to the pavement, because I ain't somebody that's going to wheel my chair down the middle of the road. But especially when I would have to go get the bus, I would go down the road instead of using the pavement. Not because the pavement isn't surfaced properly, because round about my area, because there is a lot of new estates, the pavement condition is actually very good. The problem is where the dropped curbs are. They don't have dropped curbs at the actual opening of the road. It's like a way into a street. So the problem that I have when I come down the road is I need to kind of come off at a crossing, go onto the road and then cross over there, because most of the time when I would go down for the bus, there would be like a disability bus, like the kind of buses that take disabled kids to school or clubs or things like that. One of them, and the guy that parks it parks right on the pavement, meaning that there is literally little to no space for me to get by in my wheelchair. And see, sometimes he even goes the extra mile and he parks over the dropped curb, the only dropped curb that is on that bit of pavement. So even in times like that, if I've got there and realised that's happened, I then need to just fucking bump myself down the large curb, which I don't know how good the suspension in my wheelchair is. Like, I get quite feared about it because my wheelchair's so heavy, lifting it in and out my car. Sometimes I drop it when I'm taking it out of the boot, and I just think, like, how heavy it is. Just one more drop of that, one more kind of bump down, like something could break, and it's scary. Like, there is sometimes when I'm in my chair and I'm like, I don't know if I feel 100% safe in it, but it's crash tested and things like that. I should feel safe in it. However, I'm in the process of raising funds for a wheelchair, but I am trying to get a wheelchair through the NHS. I managed to get a referral done by my physio. I'd already had an appointment where they basically just told me all of the things that needed changed about my wheelchair. They didn't offer me any alternatives. When a guy phoned me at the start of the week there, he told me that my height and weight that I have, that's the lightest wheelchair that they can give me. And I'm like, okay, so why when I've been in a mobility shop, they've told me that I can get a sports chair that is upwards of 1.5, 2 grand. Yet as the NHS, you can't provide me with a chair because I could go on right now and I could find that lightweight sports chairs that are 6 kilograms take my body weight, take my height. So what's the reasoning? And he kind of went away and he said, "Oh, I'll need to speak to my manager. I'll phone you back." No phone call back. Get a letter to say, "We've received your referral." Great. And then I got another letter delivered today to say, "Just to let you know, 100% got your referral, but everything is just under severe pressure right now. So you're waiting upwards of 12 weeks," which I knew was going to be the process. The last time when I phoned up and asked for an assessment, it was probably about 4 months that I waited. So that's all good. I'm gonna wait for it. But it's things like that where when I go over uneven paths and things like that, I want to feel safe. I want to feel sturdy. I don't know. Like that's the biggest thing of it. Like I'm actually going to talk about accessibility in terms of costing of things, like pricing. Just whilst I said about my wheelchair there, like it is absolutely wild to me when I went to a mobility shop to look for a lighter chair. I initially was looking for something that was 300, £400 because I wanted to be able to ask my family to pay for it, and a higher end chair was out of my budget. Um, so we went, and when I tried the sports chairs, I don't know if I'd spoke about it in the podcast before, but I can't even explain the difference. Like, it felt so good, so kind of streamlined, and I didn't feel like there was anything wobbly or unsecure or anything like that. However, the guy that we spoke to told me that these were a luxury item, and I don't really understand that because I tried a lighter weight chair that I was actually considering getting. My ex had one of them, and I ended up having to get his brother to push me once because I was going back to my chair, back to my car, and I lost control of the chair. Um, and like that shouldn't happen. That's something where if I've got a lighter chair, I might need to get something to weigh down kind of the right side because I've not got a leg there. Weights that I can take on and off so that when I've got my prosthetic, it's still not as weighed down. But I would rather actually have some kind of assessment to tell me what's suitable for me, because the NHS, when I went for my last appointment, just told me everything that wasn't suitable. If I get a wheelchair that's upwards of 1.5 grand, they do a 3 hour consultation where they go through every single piece of the wheelchair, tell you why it's there, why they add these things, do you want this addition costs this price. Like, it is totally patient centred, and your wheelchair is made to suit you. And when I went to the NHS, I really thought that they were going to do some kind of assessment and say, here are the options of wheelchairs that we have available that suit you. And that didn't happen. And it's wild that I know the health service is under strain. I know that it is the system, it's not the people, it's the government. It's all pretty fucked, to be honest. But I hate feeling like I have to fight for something that's pretty basic. Like, I shouldn't be having to say that me, when I go out, taking my wheelchair in and out of my car absolutely fucks my back and my shoulders, where I then struggle to get a good night's sleep because my body's in pain. And the reason I'm kind of saying that is that a lighter chair one that is more secure and obviously made for you is seen as being luxury. Even after I'd been to look at wheelchairs, I saw a wee wheel thing that goes back on the back of manual chairs, and it literally just has a wee joystick and it helps you to go up ramps and things that are elevated, go over uneven ground if you need a bit more of a push. And I thought, that is such a cool idea. I wonder how much it's going to be. Probably £500 to a grand. No, 4 to 4.5 grand. Like, accessibility features that just aren't accessible to people who have to live off benefits. And it's really sad, to be honest. Like, knowing that I could get a wheelchair lift for my car that costs £3,000, but it would have meant that I would have had to wait an extra 6 to 12 months before I got my car, taking that level of accessibility away from me. It's almost like you're given a red pill and a blue pill, and both of them are accessibility options, but you only get to choose one of them. Um, and that sucks, to be honest. Like, it's it's shitty sometimes. It's really fucking frustrating living in a world that is set up like this, where I want to be able to do things and I want to go out and I want to live an active life and do all of the shit and explore and things like that, but it just costs so much money and I have none. Like, I don't even get the full amount of benefits because I wasn't under the mental health team, so they said, no, we can't say that your mental health impacts you. So now I'm like, skin, because my mobility money goes on paying my car. Like, it's so frustrating. So frustrating. Anyway, I think that's enough of a rant for me today. Had so much more that I wanted to say. Actually, there's one last thing that I want to say about the downsides of accessibility, and it is concert tickets, gigs, things like that. If you're listening to this and you are a regular gig goer as a disabled person and you get accessible tickets, please let me know how you find the process of getting tickets, because I haven't been to a gig in 6 years and I'm going to one next week because I impulsively bought tickets for You Me at Six because they were splitting up and they're doing like an ending tour, but I was like, that's going to be too difficult to get tickets. And right now, there is still a wheelchair ticket for in Aberdeen. So I'm going, fine, cool. But I'm like, I queued to get tickets for No I Can. I was there probably half an hour before the tickets went on sale. I was 2,500 in the queue. And by the time I got to the front of the queue, there was no accessible tickets. And then when you actually look into it, places that have capacities of thousands, tens of thousands, 20,000, things like that, and they've got 20 disabled spaces, 10 disabled spaces. Like, how is that fair? How is that fucking fair? The same with parking. You've got 50 normal parking spaces and you've got 3 disabled spaces. Disabled people make up 24% of the population in the UK. 24%. So I feel like in parking areas, it should be 24% blue badge spaces. Even the Lidl that I go to, there's disabled spaces, but guess what's in front of them? Parent and child. Parent and child. What? There's times where I've parked and it's blue badge spaces and it's people with kids. Having a kid isn't a disability unless your kid's disabled, unless you're disabled. Like, I know that that is a case where it happens, where there are people that have invisible disabilities and that's why they're parking there. And I'm not saying that. I'm just like, in the terms of, why is there 4 adult and child spaces before disabled parking spaces? Wild. I don't get it why it's set up like that. And also at my mental health team, the disabled spaces that they have put in are designed with disabled passengers in mind, not disabled drivers, because there is no space near the driver's door for somebody to get out. I wouldn't be able to get my wheelchair next to it. I literally had to shimmy along the side of my car with my crutches because there was no space, so much so that I popped the fuel cap with my butt and I had to push it back in before I drove off. Like, wild. I don't don't get it. I don't see how things are still made up in this way because they look like pretty newly painted disabled spaces. Why have you done it where it's not a disabled driver? That is weird to me, really weird. I think that is it for today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cripple Chronicles podcast. I am so glad that I'm kind of getting back on track. The next episode that I'm going to do, I am going to think about healing and relationships and what that's like. And this is an episode where I'm not going to drop names of people. I'm going to try and be kind of very, try to think of the word, like kind of removing myself from the situation, almost like seeing how my feelings were and the lessons that I've learned, but I don't want to talk too much about actual specific situations because um there is always a different side to the story. There's my side, their side, and then the middle, and I never want to feel like I am coming online and shit talking somebody because that's not really fair. But if you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast, please leave a like on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube too, follow me on Spotify, podcast, Apple Podcasts, even Amazon Podcasts, TikTok, Instagram, Cripple Chronicles Pod, anything that you would like to get in contact with me, please send an email to cripplecchroniclespod@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode, and I will see you in a few weeks' time. Bye!